welcome back to the Realm of Unpopular Opinions. It is once again, and this time at a proper moment, time for the mid-year check-in. I know it's called a tag, but I kind of skip around doing the questions, so we're going to call it a check-in. It's not going to be a long video because I don't have that much to say, but for once, I felt like doing it at the actual halfway point of the year and not at the beginning of August. So let's just get into it. I have a paper with the questions, and this time I'm actually going to pull out the books because I haven't done that in a while, and I feel like it's sometimes more fun to just like see the physical copy. Best book you've read so far this year. Now, I had to deliberate quite a bit, but I did settle on East of Eden because it's a little bit dusty. I had to settle on East of Eden because that's the only like properly new book that I loved. I don't think I've given anything I read this year, aside from some manga, and I will get to that, 5 stars without deliberating for too long. And I read this like right at the beginning of January, so it's a little bit of a cop-out. I definitely bought this in 2022, but I read it in January. It's logged in January, so it counts. But this had to be the best book that I've read so far this year because I try not to count rereads, so it's gonna have to be this one. This is, by the way, the really, really pretty edition, which is why the spine isn't broken. It has deckled edges. I love, love, love this edition, which is a bit of a problem because, you know, I like annotating. So whenever I read this again, unfortunately, I won't annotate this because it's so, so pretty as an edition. The next question, best sequel you've read this year. Now for this, I'm going to have to use The Image because it's the second book in the Ava Evergreen series. I don't think it's a series because this kind of felt like the last book. Now, I didn't give this 5 stars, but this is technically the best sequel that I read, so it kind of got the position by default. I really enjoyed the first book. It was pretty much Kiki's Delivery Service, but with a spin on it, like that was very obvious. Part 2 was quite fun because it felt more unique and like there was more intentional plot. But at the same time, I feel like there was maybe a bit too much. Like the entire ending of this book is so intense that you kind of wonder why she just didn't do 3 books. To be honest, I would have read 3 or more books in this series. It's very fun. I like the characters. The magic is simple while also being pretty fun. So especially since this is a middle grade, I feel like this needed more books. But this is the best sequel that I read this year, so that isn't a reread or anything. So it kind of won this position. The next 2 are new releases and anticipated releases. I never once, I think, did this question because I don't read new releases. It sounds like an exclusionary thing, but I genuinely am not interested in things that aren't finished or reading first books that maybe will never get finished. It's not something that interests me, so I mostly read through a backlog of finished books. Now, for biggest disappointment, it was a contest between 2 books, but Age of Swords, or that whole series, had to win because I actually did have expectations for that one. The other book that was almost put here wasn't a disappointment because I expected it to be like that, but this was an actual disappointment. I was so excited to read a new fantasy series that's self-published, that's not really talked about. I saw 2 people talking about it, that's why I picked it up, but I think my mild enjoyment of the first book just made it worse when I DNF'd the second book because that's quite a leap in quality. That I go from, I think, 4 stars for the first book and then DNFing the second. That's just embarrassing. I've said enough about this, so I don't need to articulate why this is my biggest disappointment, but it might turn out to be my biggest disappointment of the year because when new fantasy fumbles this hard, it's just such a blow to the rest of us who wanted something new. Biggest surprise. I think this one might be obvious and it might not, but Season of Storms. Absolutely the biggest surprise because I fully expected not to like this. I mean, my dad did tell me that it was good. He read it the first time around when we were reading the whole series. I did not expect to like this in the slightest because I was so pissed off at the end of the series. I didn't think anything good would ever come out of this author. But I was glad to be wrong, so it was quite the surprise when I loved this. and it's like top 3 Witcher books now, so I liked Coral more than Yennefer, which isn't difficult because I had a very difficult time putting up with Yennefer, but biggest surprise. The next question is new favorite author. Now for this, I do have a physical copy and I'm so happy about that, but I'm so excited that I have them. Yuki Midorikawa. I have 2 volumes of this, by the way. I read the entire thing, but I have 2 volumes of this. I fell in love with this anime. I've been watching it twice in the span of like 4 months. As soon as I finished it, I was depressed that I'd finished it, so I just started watching it again. And I love this series so much. This author is absolutely a new favorite author because I would read anything she puts out in this series. I might even check out the other stuff that she's written, but I will read anything. She said she never wants to finish this. She might write it until she dies. I will read it until she dies. Anything she comes out with, I will read. I will absolutely read. So this is volume 27, which is I think the newest one. I also have volume 26, but I literally can't find anything else. Anything else. Like on all the websites, the Book Depository is closed down now, which has been a severe blow to me personally. But even there, and I checked before it closed down, it was very difficult to find these. Like these 2, I think because they're the newest ones I found on Wordery, haven't been able to find a single volume elsewhere, so I have a 25 volume gap to fill up eventually when they do start showing up. But if you have advice on a place that has these with international shipping that isn't absurd, I would purchase it. I would buy all of them. But I'm so happy that I found these 2 because I thought like it was doomed. When I couldn't find them anywhere, I thought it was doomed, but I love them. And they're so pretty because you have like manga who are really tiny and then big ones like Tokyo Ghoul and the omnibuses, but this one is like perfectly sized. I love this and I'm so happy that I have it. Once I don't have an answer for this, but new favorite fictional crush. So I did come up with an answer just to not be boring. I wouldn't call it my fictional crush because I don't think of him outside of this series. Like I just remember he exists anytime that a chapter comes out, but what is his name? I wrote it down. Sato Ichiro. I mean, he's pretty. He's pretty, and I think Suishita intended him to be pretty. He always knows like which characters are gonna be pretty in the fandom. Like he even calls Ayato pretty boy a couple times throughout the series because he made him that way. But I guess him, anytime he's on page, I'm kind of like, you mean dog. Suishita, like you know exactly how to get people to like your characters visually at least. But yeah, I don't have a new fictional crush. And here's the thing about manga like this. I'll just use Trojan X as an example. Mini side tangent. But when, in my experience, I've not tracked a single manga from its release ever, apart from this one. And because he doesn't do it every month, I feel like I'm sometimes reminded of its existence very randomly. Like you just don't care about something that you read in such small chunks over time. Like I feel like if I collect the volumes and then I like read them all at once, I would care a bit more. But sometimes there are very long breaks in between chapters and I forget the character names. I forget what happened last. And while I'm enjoying it, I don't love the whole monthly release thing with manga because I feel like I become detached in a way. For example, Noragami, like one of the last vlogs that I did, you care if you read 25 volumes all at once. But now that it's been a while again, and I've just been reading the monthly chapters, you're just disinterested, I guess. Like a dramatic thing can happen one month, but it takes you 10 minutes to read the chapter, and then that's it. There's no continuation. And it's been 3 months since you last read the rest of the manga, so you're kind of like, oh, there's a chapter this month. I don't really care anymore what's going on at the moment. I know and love the characters, but I've just not been thinking about them until this exact time. And I don't know, it's just not my favorite way to enjoy series, which is why I do like to binge them. Anytime that I read a longer manga that's still coming out that I have been tracking, I feel like I just care more if I binge it. So Noragami really suffers from that, and so does Shojin X, which is why I was a bit hesitant using this because I genuinely didn't even know his name. New favorite character, we're just gonna go back to what I said, and that's Natsume and Madara. Absolutely my new favorite characters. I would die for them. They would die for each other, but that is besides the point. Those are my new favorite characters. I didn't really have to deliberate on this. Book that made you cry, we're gonna have to go back to this. It made me cry like twice. Not cry like sob, but tear up because I was touched in some way. So twice. East of Eden, so I had to kind of go with it. I don't want to repeat myself, but I just had to mention it. Book that made you happy. Now, I don't have part 1 because it is currently being read by someone else. So we're going to go with just this series in general, but Tower of Fools in particular because I haven't finished this. It's a joy to read. Like, even when he's gross and gruesome and bleak, he's so funny. If you look at this as a comedy and just vibe with it, you will have the best time, just like I did. I've learned not to care about continuity when it comes to Sapkowski. And it's been so much fun, and I've enjoyed everything that he has written since I started reading him that way. And the second one would be Uramichi Volume 4. Now, I thought that this manga stopped releasing. I genuinely thought it stopped releasing because there were no chapters online since the anime came out, which was 2 years ago. And then someone just uploaded the 4th omnibus, and I was like, great, it's back on. And then I just realized that the 4th volume actually released this month, and I immediately had to buy it and everything. But I thought it stopped releasing. It turns out the people just stopped translating it, and then they uploaded the translation once the volume came out. But I was so happy. Like, I was coming back from university when I just randomly checked the website to see if new chapters came in. There was 20, 30-ish to read, and I just cackled and genuinely laughed on public transport because I was reading this. It gives me too much joy. That series gives me too much joy. And I can't rationally explain it, but I think with comedy, it's very subjective and not necessarily able to put into words why it is so subjective. So this is joy incarnate for me, and I'm very happy that it's back in my life. Pretty books. Pretty books that I bought this year. I've got 2. One is an actual book, the other is a graphic novel, but I bought this recently actually. So, Illuminations by Alan Moore. I will just let you see the entire thing, and then I'll take off the dust jacket because it just looks so cool. Hang on. Like, it's all white and stuff, but then you've got like the silver title, and the end pages are just so cool. I like pretty hardcovers. I never find pretty hardcovers, and this one's actually very very cheap. I found it for very cheap, and it is not cheap where I live, so I was very happy about that. I got it off Amazon. So this book is definitely the prettiest one that I bought this year. It's got like the, what do you call it? Embossing, like the thing that stands out on the cover, physically stands out. Loved the appearance of this. Now, in terms of the actual book, spoiler alert, I read 2 of the stories so far. I didn't love them. Can't say I loved them, because the thing about Alan Moore is he's very specific. He's just very specific, and if it sits with you, that's great. If it doesn't, I feel like it really doesn't sit with you. So I hope to like at least one story in here to make it worthwhile and worth my money. But we'll see. He's just very specific as an author. And the second one, I pulled up the second volume, is the June graphic novel. Like, this one is the title. See? Like, it catches in the light and stuff, but it is such a pretty object. Like, you know when a book is just so pretty that you think I might have even purchased this if I didn't care about it? Like, look at what it looks like. It's so pretty. Under the dust jacket and everything. Let me see. It is stunning. It's actually, like, such a stunning thing to have, and the art is really pretty too. So let me just, I don't know, find a random page. Look at it. I just love the Dune graphic novels. The first one is also pretty, but I preferred like the blue color scheme. so I wanted to show you the blue one. I can't wait for the third one. If we're talking about anticipated releases, the third one, this is like divided by books. So how the first Dune book has 3 parts, this is part 2, and then part 3 has yet to come out with the graphic novel in 2024. I cannot wait because part 3 will have one of my favorite characters in Dune, and I can't wait to see her. So I really, really like these, and I think I bought them also very early on in the year. I want to say January or February, but I love these. And as soon as I saw them, I was like, do you need these? No, but you want these. Last up, we have the last final question of this tag that I've not really been doing properly, I think, but that is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? The third of these, which is Light Perpetual, I am waiting for the paperback to come out because the other stuff is just too expensive, and I want them to match. Like, if you have a trilogy, at least have the 3 match. So Light Perpetual, once I buy it, it might be in July or whenever it comes out. Catherine Arden 3, I need to finish that. It's an embarrassment. I did those vlogs like, what, a year and a half ago. Either way, it's embarrassing. And I also need to read at least Lord of Chaos. At least Lord of Chaos, because the rest of the series I have the particular way of reading, so it's not like a specific book, but rather storylines. So I at least need to read Lord of Chaos this year, then the rest, no one knows how long it will take. And that's kind of it for what I need to read. I'm not putting limitations on anything else because mood reader, and that's what we've realized is mostly the reason why I've not been reading that much, because half of the year in the Mediterranean is just killing my mood. Absolutely, all around killing my mood to read or do anything or exist. So for half the year, I'm pretty much out of commission in terms of reading. So that's kind of it for the video. I hope it was somewhat fun. I did show you some of the books. Let me know if you prefer the image format or if I hold them up. I feel like you can see better if it's the image, but I do sometimes like people holding up the books because you see the physical object, you see how big it is, you see the actual thickness, you see the page flipping. Like, it just feels more real, I guess, if you hold up the book, but it's a bit more clean when you do the pictures. So let me know which style you prefer. I'm not sure myself. I've been doing the images for a while and I just wanted to pick out the books, but also it's a bit of a pain when you have to pull them out off the shelves, especially if they're as tightly packed as my books currently are. So I've rambled enough. I will let you go, and let me know what has been the best and worst book that you've read so far this year, because that's always very, very fun to know, especially if it's one of the ones that I mentioned. So I will see you in the next video.